And we're going to start a new chapter tonight. I'm going to go back and reflect on some of the notes. If you have your notes from last week, the very front of them, what angels are involved in our lives. But I want you to watch this video of the movie that I don't want, it's up to you to see it if you want to see it. I'm not recommending the movie or whatever, but it's called City of Angels. And I want you to see what this angel does. His name is Seth, by the way. If you didn't get that, he's an angel, all right? He's a messenger from God, okay? His last name's Messenger, Seth Messenger. And I want you to listen to what he says, how he comforts a doctor who ended up losing somebody. And then my favorite part is at the very end when he's walking down the hallway. I want you to see if you notice this.
Excuse me. Are you a visitor?
Yes.
Well, visiting hours have been over since 8.
Well, why do they have that?
What?
Hours. Doesn't it help the patient to be visited?
Well, who are you visiting, Mr. Messenger?
Right now?
Yeah.
You.
I don't need a visitor.
You're not ill?
No. I'm one of the doctors here.
Are you in despair?
I lost a patient.
You did everything you could?
I was holding his heart in my hand when he died.
He wasn't alone.
Yes, he was.
People die.
Not on my table.
People die when their bodies give out.
It's my job to keep their bodies from giving out. Or what am I doing here?
It wasn't your fault, Maggie.
I wanted him to live.
He is living. Just not the way you think.
I don't believe in that.
Some things are true whether you believe in them or not.
How did you know my name? What's yours?
Seth.
Seth.
Floating, floating, don't pop it, don't pop it. Do you know the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man? Beep, beep.
It might be one of my favorite parts of the movie if you can understand what's going on. There's an angel in every room with the children as he's walking down the aisle, and no one else sees him and stuff. And I just, man, I'm so moved when I see that, because that's exactly what Scripture says about kids in here. And if you'll take your notes out from last week, lesson 3, we're going to go through lesson 3 real quick, and then we're going to jump over to talk about the dark side of angels. The dark side of angels. We're going to talk about demons tonight and what they can and can't do. But let's talk about tonight real quick. Let's look at the ministry of angels. The ministry of angels. First, we saw last week one of their primary purposes is to serve. That's why they were created, to serve. To serve. Hebrews 1:14 says that. It says this, are they not all ministering spirits? He's talking about the angels. Sent forth to minister to those who will inherit salvation. So they're meant to serve. They were created to serve. Not only is their ministry to serve, they answer prayer. They answer prayer. And last week I shared with you that passage from Acts about Peter. It's one of my favorite ones. Remember, he's in prayer, or he's in prison. They're in prayer. And they're praying to get Peter out of prison. It said, Peter was therefore kept in prison, but constant prayer was offered to God for him by the church. Now behold, an angel of the Lord stood by him, and a light shone in the prison, and he struck Peter on the side and raised him up, saying, arise quickly, and his chains fell off his hands. Then what did he do? He ran out the door with the angel. He got to the door where they were praying for him. He knew where they were hanging out at. He got to the prayer meeting a little late, knocked on the door. A girl opens the shutter. Peter? Yeah. Shuts it, runs back and tells it, hey, everybody, hey, Peter? And they said, yeah, we're praying for him. Let's have our prayer time. He's at the front door. What? Did you let him in? No. And so she runs back, and they bring Peter in. But he was a part, that angel was sent to loosen the chains, to take Peter out, and God wasn't finished with him yet. So he answered prayer. They're instrumental in winning people to Christ. You know, next time you go out soul winning and you wonder, say, that person will never come to Christ. By the way, never say that. Man, I tell you what, I feel a little convicted, but I remember we used to do soul winning programs and keep them pretty sporadic at our church as far as teaching them on our Wednesday night services. And I remember one of the programs we learned, it was called, that's terrible, I can't even remember what the program was called. But anyways, it was a soul winning program that you memorized and went through things. And then to make it work, you took people with you when you went out. That's pretty intimidating for a pastor. You got 3 people with you, and you're supposed to be a know-it-all, right? And I remember going into one house, and we sat down, and at the table, they're sitting next to me. We sat at a couch, and it was a husband and a wife, and there was a coffee table between us. And at one end, there was a book called The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. And at the other end, there was a book called The Da Vinci Code. I said, boy, we got our work cut out tonight, okay? Which are they going to believe? They're going to go after the Da Vinci Code, or we're going to go after the purpose-driven life? And that night, they gave their heart and life to Jesus Christ. People got a chance to see that, but they got a chance to go with me on the next trip, too, the very next one. We went into a house, husband and wife. They actually visited the church. I went through the plan of salvation. I said, would you like to trust Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? And the guy said, no. Wait a minute. No. And they're watching, right? So I talked to him a little more, and we went back and forth about it, and he said no. And so we walked out that night, had prayer with them, appreciated him coming to church. I actually thought, we'll never see them again, right? 2 Sundays after that, I'll never forget it. He was sitting right back there, very back row. And when the invitation was given, first one down front came forward, gave his heart and life to Jesus Christ. Your job is not to save them. That's Jesus' job. You're successful when you just present the plan of salvation. That's when you have, that's all he's asked you to do. The fields are white in the harvest. You just get out there and sow the seed. And he came to saving faith in Jesus Christ. I wish that happened all the time, but it doesn't. There are times that people just, go another direction. But it's always good, I think, to take other people with you so they can see what they perceive. You know what? You talk about rejoicing, to watch him walk forward, and they were there the night that it was a disaster, just talking to him, and coming forward. I'll never forget one night I was talking to a lady, talking to her husband, and she was a believer, but her husband wasn't. The phone rang, and she knew I was talking to him and stuff like that, and she went in the next room, and she's talking. And when I got through talking, I asked him, would you like to receive Jesus Christ? And he said, I would like to do that. And I didn't say a thing. I said, well, let's pray. He got on his knees off the chair, put his hands there. I remember going through the prayer with him, and his wife walked in, and she's standing there. She goes, what's going on? What's going on in here? She couldn't believe it. I mean, she was a skeptic over it. I'm just saying that, you know what? God at times will send his angels ahead to begin working in people's hearts and lives even, to show and convince them. There may be somebody at your husband's work or at your wife's place of employment who makes a statement to you that God is using. That's what he did for Philip. He told Philip, I need you to go into the desert. Why? You'll know when you get out there. And out there's a Ethiopian, and he's on the side, and his chariot is broken down. He's got a flat tire, okay? And Philip pulls over and starts helping him, and he's actually reading the scriptures. And he's reading Isaiah 53. Isaiah 53. Can you lead someone to the Lord through Isaiah 53? Absolutely, you sure can. It's the gospel of the Old Testament. Someone calls it the 5th gospel, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Isaiah 53. But it says, the angel of the Lord spoke to Philip, saying, arise, go to the south along the road which goes down from Jerusalem to Gaza. Why? Because that's where that guy was, and he would lead him to Christ. Not only instrumental in winning people to Christ, but encouraging saints in times of danger. Encouraging saints in times of danger. There's a bunch of passages I can give you, but my favorite's probably Daniel. Would you have been afraid if you got thrown into a den of lions? Yeah, I think so. I don't know if that's the way I want to die. There's certain ways you don't want to die, right? Like fixing the hot water heater and it blows up, right? The gas or whatever. Like, I don't want to stand before God and say, I don't know what happened or whatever. But Daniel 6, my God sent his angel and shut the lion's mouth so that they have not hurt me because I was found innocent. He's telling that to the king. Talk about a great testimony, all right? He tells that to the king. And the king was happy about it because he liked Daniel. Encouraging saints in times of danger. Delivering saints from danger. Last week I used a passage in Genesis 19 where Lot, remember the two angels and the Christophanies appeared to Abraham out. Jesus stays with Abraham. The two angels go to get Lot out of Sodom and Gomorrah. And to show you how perverse that city is, they wanted them. They were men. Their homosexuality was rampant. It'd be like, I guess, San Francisco or something. They followed them into the house and they wanted to know the men. And Lot went out and he was trying to make deals with them and trying to shoo them away and stuff like that. And they started getting rowdy with Lot, and those two angels stepped outside, grabbed Lot, put him inside, and then blinded every one of them. That didn't stop them though, did it? They kept reaching out, groping in the dark, trying to figure out where the angels were. But they deliver saints from danger. F, some duty with regards to the souls and bodies of the dead saints. You see Lazarus. When Lazarus died, the angels came, took him to heaven. Took him to heaven. When we looked at Moses in Jude 9, he didn't just send any angel, he sent the archangel. And last week we were talking about this, debating back and forth. I don't know. I know for a fact there's one archangel, at least one. All right? The Jews will tell us, the Jewish people will tell us by their traditions and customs, there are 7 of them. I don't know. First of all, I know Gabriel's never called an archangel, even though they referred to him as an archangel. Only Michael is the archangel. So we see that. And then they look after children. That's one of my favorite scene right there as they're walking down the hallway. And there's an angel in every room in that hospital room. There's a book out by Robert Lightner. If you ever need to help somebody. And I'm bummed because this book has been taken out of print. They've rewrote it, and I like the old title of the book better than I like the new one. The old title says, Heaven for Those That Can't Believe. What do you do with a child? Not so much a child, what happens when your child, and that's why I like Heaven for Those That Can't Believe. They rewrote the book, redid the book, and put it out for mothers that lose a child. That you'll hold them in heaven. You'll see them in heaven. I don't know if you'll hold them. I think they'll be full grown or whatever like that. Maybe they can show you around the place. But yeah, I believe children go to heaven that die. It's kind of funny. We do biblical counseling here. We had a guy that was training us that was Presbyterian. His name was Dana Stoddard. Some of you don't know. Dana's went home to be with the Lord. But anyways, he was Presbyterian, and he was teaching our people how to do counseling. I'll never forget when he said, you can't look across the table and tell that mother that her child is in heaven. It's like, he said that in the wrong place, all right? A bunch of ladies sitting around the table and stuff like that. And I do believe every child that passes, if they don't have the ability to be able to believe, and by the way, it's not just for child, I'm talking about Down syndrome children too, because I've had a mother ask me that. Well, when the rapture happens, will my child with Downs, will he be taken? Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's a great book. It's called Heaven for Those That Can't Believe. It's a phenomenal book. But Robert Lightner wrote it from Dallas Theological Seminary. But he talks about, that's part of his argument right there, is that every child has an angel. That's what he says right here. And he says that angels were created for those that are heirs of salvation. And he says that in Hebrews 1:14. So, yeah, I believe children go to heaven that pass. That's why every tribe, every tongue, and every kingdom is represented in heaven. In the Old Testament, you see a total annihilation of a nation, the whole nation. Women, children as well. Those children are with the Lord. Well, that's the ministry of angels. Let's talk about the presence of angels. The presence of angels. They can be seen physically. You just saw here, she saw him, but most of the time she couldn't see him. If you watch the movie, you can't see him. She doesn't see him most of the time. He appears, and she actually was able to see him here. That same thing happens. Luke chapter 1, when Mary saw the angel, saw Gabriel. By the way, he appeared to her brother. Let's see what it would be. Elizabeth was her cousin, so what would that make Zacharias, which was Elizabeth's husband? They're related. Let's put it that. They're family. Here we go. He visited family. And to let Zechariah, and this is a great story. When you read it at Christmas time, it's fantastic. He's in charge. He's of the tribe of Levi. He's a priest, and they draw lots to see who gets to go into the Holy of Holies, right? He wins. All right? Now, when you go in, they used to tie a little rope around your leg. And it had a little jingle bell on it. Ding, 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 right? Ding, 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 ding. Because when you went in there, there was nowhere to sit. Why? Because your work was never done. They would go in there to take the blood, to pour it on the mercy seat and deal with that and go in there. And they had the rope around your foot because if you dropped over dead because you weren't doing what was right or you did something wrong inside there, no one's going in to get you. So what do? They pull him out, right? You got to get Zechariah. Zechariah goes walking in there, fear and trembling, man. This is the Holy of Holies. He's going to get to see the place. He walks in. An angel says, how you doing? He freaked out right there. He froze. He was speechless. He couldn't talk. The angel says, I'm here to share news with you, okay? It's like, and he appears to him. He sees him. He's talking to him. He lets him know he's going to have a son. He has a hard time believing that. He says, when he's born, you're going to name him John. You're going to name him John. Matter of fact, you're not going to speak another word until you name your son. When he comes, and they heard the bell stop ringing and stuff like that, but he comes out, and what happens? They're all asking questions and stuff. He can't say a word. Goes home, can't say a word until Elizabeth, his wife, brings forth a child. And he said, what are you going to name him? You're going to name him Bob? Harry? No. His name is John. And he was John the Baptist. So, anyways, physically, they saw Gabriel. Mary was troubled when she saw him. She didn't know why he was there. They can be seen spiritually. They can be seen spiritually. Balaam and the donkey saw him. We saw that last week. Elisha and his helper saw him. They didn't see him at first. The helper didn't see him until Elisha said, Lord, open his eyes so he can see. When he opened his eyes, there was a mountain on fire and all these heavenly warriors that were there. And he says, there's more of us than there is of them. So that gave comfort to the helper. It would have given comfort to me too, right? All of us. All right, we see the presence of angels, then the sin among angels. And last week, here was my take, and I said this is a Garyism. I already got some statements, some people, some good challenges about this. But those who fell have fallen forever. There were angels that fell, and they've fallen forever. As a matter of fact, I was in a Twitter debate the other night with some guy, and I found this out. Don't get into a Twitter debate, all right? If you're old and I was getting tendonitis in my thumbs trying to type up, and he'd send something back. Well, that doesn't prove anything, and we're going back and forth. And it all started with one guy who threw a question out there. Can you walk away from God if you're a believer? Can you lose it? And he said, well, first of all, God would have to lose you. And I thought, I like that. And that started a dumpster fire right there on Twitter. Tim, I see you occasionally on there and stuff like that. But Chris Brawley's a nemesis over there. Where's he at? There he is right there. But anyways, I was going to town and we was talking about this very thing right here, this aspect right here. If a holy angel can fall, why can't a person who claims to be a believer in Jesus Christ fall? Well, first of all, you're born fallen. They were created perfect and had a choice. In this movie that I'm not recommending you see, when you watch it, they talk about how we have a free will. He's talking to the guy, we have a free will. And he says that man has that free will. I'm not sure if we have a free will. I know we have a free choice. The Bible talks about our will being sold into slavery, into sin, and God has to work in our lives. But we have free choices. But did the angels have a free will that day? And I believe it was on the second day. They were created to worship, to do one thing, to worship God, bring and serve him. So I believe they fell on the second day. That's just my statement. And I notice I put every day that mentions on Monday, or on Sunday when he created the heavens and the earth, he said it was good. Monday, he doesn't say it's good. Tuesday, he says it's good. Wednesday, he says it's good. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, he says it's very good. He says it's very good. I'm going to check on that Hebrew thing, though, Phil, on that one statement. But Anyways, that's the one day it doesn't say it. Those who did not fall, I believe, were confirmed forever. He took a third of the angels with him. We'll see that tonight. A third of them fell, and that was one of the debates I was having with this guy online too. So I should have told him watch our streaming tonight. But anyways, okay. Tonight, let's talk about the study of angels, demons. Demons. Number 4. By the way, if you go back, that's my email right there. It's very easy. You can find it online as well and stuff like that if you have a question. I appreciate it. I've gotten several questions that I'll deal with. But anyways, biblical terminology. When we talk about demons, biblical terminology. First of all, they're called demons. They're called demons. Now, if you have a King James Version, I don't think that word even occurs in the Bible, the word demons. You're going to see the word devils. It's the same thing, all right? It's the same word. They just, in 1611, that's how they described them, the devils and stuff. But they're demons. They're fallen angels. They're demons. It says it in Leviticus 17:7. It says this. He says, there shall no more offer their sacrifices to demons. You're going to find out that they worship demons in the Old Testament. James 2:19, you believe that there's one God? You do well. Even the demons believe and tremble. How about that? There was a survey that was put out here several years ago about how many people actually believed in the virgin birth, and they were asking mainline denominations. How many believe that Jesus was virgin born? You got 50% of the Methodists that said they believed it. 50%, Started going up, the Episcopals, 60 or 70%, kind of going up the ladder and stuff. I think the Baptists were like 90%, but if you did that same survey in hell, every demon in hell would say, yeah, he was virgin born. How about that? Every demon in hell knows that, but they tremble at the things of God. And so we see demons as one of the terms. James 2:19 describes that. Familiar spirits, they're called that, a familiar spirit. Leviticus 19:31 says this, give no regard to mediums and familiar spirits. There's another term they call them in the Bible, unclean spirits. Unclean spirits. In Zechariah 13:2, he says this, I also caused the unclean spirit to depart from the land. The whole land was taken over by an unclean spirit. Matthew 10:1, he gave power over unclean spirits to do what? Cast them out. That's the same thing. It's a demon. It's another term for a demon, an unclean spirit. D, foul spirits. Now let me give you a heads up. I looked at that this week, and it's the same word, though, it's used for unclean. It just, for some reason, the old King James will put foul in there instead of unclean, but it's foul spirit. It's found in Mark 9:25. When Jesus saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the foul spirit or the unclean spirit. How about this? Fallen angels, they're still called angels. Matthew 25:41, listen to what it says. The devil and his what? Yeah, didn't say demons there, it just said his angels. The devil and his angels. So they're still called angels. They're called the sons of God. The sons of God. Job chapter 1, verse 6. Job 1:6 says this. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. And who came with them? Satan came also among them. Remember why he's going before the Lord? He's coming to challenge God. You have the sons of God coming. See, they cannot be redeemed. They're unredeemable. When they fell forever. There is no remedy for them. And that's what I was trying to explain to this guy through Twitter last night. There is no remedy. How can angels fall? Well, they had that choice. They had a free will, and they made the decision, we're not going to go after God. Someone asked a good question. What would Satan blind them by or with or offer them that they would follow after him? That's a good question. So they're called the sons of God. And then here's another one, stars. They're called the stars. Revelation 12:4. Revelation 12:4 says, he drew a third of the stars of heaven. He's talking about Satan. He calls him a dragon. And threw them into the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. Who's that? Yeah. Remember they sent out every child that's born will die if it's a male. They've done that before, didn't they? They did it in Egypt. Did it when Jesus was born. Same thing. And by the way, we're living in some very cruel times, aren't we? You know, and some of you that have been with us for 10, 15, 20 years, you've never, ever heard me tell you who to vote for. We've gone back and forth over things like this and talked about it. I'm going to share one of my favorite things is we put a sign up here that said, vote righteousness, and someone called the church office, said I had to take it down. Yeah, had to take it down. Why? Separation of church and state. Well, at least they know what the church believes, right? Vote righteousness. Well, I didn't take it down. Matter of fact, in honor of that person, I'm going to put it right back up again here in the next week or two. How about that? So, yeah, vote righteousness. And that's how we ought to vote, friends, right? So, but we're living in some perilous days. When they say it's open season on babies, and we're not just talking first trimester or the second trimester, we're talking to the day on their birthday. And by the way, it's been worse than that before. There's a guy, his name's Peter Singer. You can look him up. I don't think he teaches. He might even be deceased by now, but Peter Singer used to teach at Princeton. He believed you could take the child up to 2 years of age, take its life. It has no meaning, no value, no purpose. That's Peter Singer. He taught ethics at Princeton University, and he made that statement. And now you see where that kind of education years ago are leading people all the way up to when the baby's even born. Friends, I think it's pretty clear choices when you start looking out there. Okay, I'll move on. We see the biblical terminology, what they're called. Let's talk about the origin of demons. Where did they come from? Well, it's pretty simple. If you've been listening, origin is when Satan fell, he took a third of the angels with him, according to Revelation 12:4. You can see how Satan fell. I'm trying to remember the passage off the top of my head. I think it's Isaiah 14. Ezekiel 28 talks about it. He was an anointed cherub. He was there in the garden. Let me ask you, how many angels were in the garden? The only one you read about is Satan, right? In the form of a what? Serpent. Anyways, but when Satan fell, he took a third of the angels with him. Fallen angels are demons. The ones that fell, remember? They have fallen forever. There's no remedy. And so they are demons. That's what they're called. How do I know that? Well, there's a group of demons that work with Satan. According to Matthew chapter 12, Matthew 12 says this. Now, when the Pharisees heard it, they said, this fellow does not cast out demons except by who? And that's a term that the Jews called the devil, Satan. That's it right there. The ruler of the demons. But Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, he quoted Lincoln, right? President Lincoln right here. Or did Lincoln quote him? Look what it said. Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself cannot stand. That's in the Gettysburg Address, isn't it? A house divided cannot stand. We're living in that here in our country. That's what Jesus pointed out. If Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How would the kingdom stand? And so he has a group of people that are demons. Demons work with Satan. Not only that, there's a group of angels that work with Satan. Who are they? Look what it says. It says in Matthew 25, then he will also say to those on the left hand, depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his what? His angels. They're one and the same. They work with Satan. They're angels that have fallen. They're called demons. They're called the angels of Satan. Not only that, they're called a group of wicked spirits that work with Satan. A group of wicked spirits that work with Satan. And this is in the passage in Ephesians where Peter's talking about putting on the whole armor of God because you're in a battle out there. And then he says this. Paul does, Ephesians 6. He says, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the what? Heavenly places. So a lot of the stuff that you see out there is so wicked and heinous, and who could ever think that up? I'll tell you where it comes from. It comes right out of the pit. How about that? That's where it's coming from. Ezekiel says this. That's terrible. I think it's Isaiah 5. he says, woe to those who call evil good. Evil good, who would ever do that? Well, people say abortion's good. I have a quote from a pastor who said that abortion was God's gift to the church to help out. It's like, what? You got to be kidding. How could a person, actually say it? And what gets me is people actually listen to that and shake their head, yeah. It's God's gift. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. If you're against abortion, they'll say you are evil. You're evil. They don't want your values. Okay, I know I'm preaching right now. Hope Google doesn't take me off of this stream right here. So anyways, all right. I think that might be one of my goals over the next few months. See if they can take me off the air or whatever. So, all right, I'm moving along. The origin of demons, well, Satan fell, he took a third with him. Fallen angels are demons, and the devil and his angels are defeated by Michael and his angels in Revelation chapter 12. Revelation 12. Somebody was asking about everything that's going on in this world, and I tweeted a thing out and said, hey, you want to find out? Read Revelation 6 through 19. Don't wait for the movie. Read the book, okay? Get in there. You'll see it. And then the intelligence of demons. The intelligence of demons. Well, we saw last week that they inquire. They want to know about things. They'll never understand grace, and so they're always inquiring. They're in church watching what's going on. But I know this. They know that Jesus is God. Every demon knows that Jesus is God. Mark 1:24, he says this. Now there was a man in the synagogue. This guy's worshiping, all right? Comes to worship. And by the way, that's where the devil and his demons go every week. They go to church. I don't know if you knew that. So I thought he goes to the honky tonks. The bars, they own those places. They don't have to go there. They like to come to church. And look what this guy does. There was a man in the synagogue with an unclean spirit. And he cried out saying, let us alone. What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? Did you come to destroy us? I know who you are. You're the Holy One of God. The demons know who he is. They're terrified of him because they know their ultimate doom. By the way, they already know the end of the book. All right? This isn't dualism, good versus evil. God is in control of everything. And so they know that Jesus is God. Not only that, they know about their ultimate doom. They know their ultimate doom. You just saw that. Same thing in Mark or Matthew chapter 8, verse 29. And suddenly they cried out saying, what have we to do with you, Jesus, you Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time? I think that's the maniac of Gadara. Remember what Jesus did? Cast him out into the pigs, and they went and over the side of a mountain. That was it. Let's look at one more thing. I have the notes up there. You don't have these notes, but you're going to have them next week in your hand, the first part. The abode of demons. The abode of demons. And we're going to talk about that next week. This is where it kind of gets interesting. What has been their influence since they fell? If they fell, let's say they fell at the very beginning. And they've been influenced. So what's going on out there? Well, the abode of demons, let me say this, and we've talked about this already, but some demons are free to roam the earth and the heavens. They're free to roam earth. And that's why Paul says, we're not wrestling against flesh and blood. You're out there against principalities and power. You're fighting against demonic influence. That's what you're fighting against. So we see demons are free to roam the earth and the heavenlies. And some demons are bound in hell. It's a place called Tartarus. And we talked about that already. The only time it occurs is in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. The only time it ever occurs. That passage, Tartarus, they're in hell. And they did something during the days of Noah, and we're going to get into that. And this is where it gets interesting. I'm going to have some of you that disagree. And it's okay. Can we agree to disagree? Is that okay? I had a professor who said, it makes the Bible look kind of like wild, like a mythology. It's not. All we're doing is we're seeing what is the Word of God. And we're going to build precept upon precept, line upon line, right there. And I think it's very fascinating, the demon involvement. Why are these demons bound in Tartarus? And it was something that happened during the days of Noah, and we're going to go back and look at that. It was so bad, put it this way, it was so bad what was happening that God destroyed the entire world. And he said, the next time I do it, it will be what happened today, as it was in the days of Noah. Now, I've heard people kind of blow that off. Well, he's just saying that life goes on, right? No, there was something so bad that God said enough is enough, and he destroyed the entire world except 8 people. Think about that. By the way, here's another thing. Do you know that every culture has a flood story? It's not just the Bible. The Bible is the only one that really makes sense, but you got Gilgamesh, you got the lost city of Atlantis, you got all these different culture stories about a flood and how it happened and why. They all agree this way. There's a God that's mad and angry, and he has them prepare a place. And it's kind of interesting, the different scenarios that happen on there. But there's a flood story, and think about it. Noah and his sons came off the ark, and when they spread out and began to multiply and fill the earth like God desired them to do, stories went with them. See, they didn't have a Bible, did they? Who's the one who kind of penned the books of the Bible, the Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy? Who did that? Moses. And when did Moses live? He lived about 1500 BC. That's when Moses was, 1500 BC. So you got, going back, if you take Usher's timeline, I know people, I believe in a young earth, to be honest with you. I don't believe in an old one. I believe in a young one. People say, well, wait a minute, how do you explain this rock? It's 10 million years old and stuff. How do you know it's 10 million years old? What are you using that, okay? Were you there when that rock was? I'm going to take God what he says, right? And he created in the beginning. I don't need 10 million or a billion years, okay? If Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden that first night, it got a little chilly, and Adam got a saw out and cut a tree down, going to have a fire, romantic fire. You know, here's Eve, voice. He cuts a fire, gets it going. Let me ask something. Did the tree have rings in it? Remember, it was just created like 3 or 4 days before, right? Did it have rings in it? I think it did. Matter of fact, when he came out, were they able to see the stars? How long does it take for light to get here from a star? They're talking about years. They call them light years. I think they were up there. He created it, and I have a buddy, Brian Osborne. I forgot what he told me. I always use the wrong term. I always say he created it with the appearance of age. All right? Brian has a better comeback on that. Phil, you remember what he calls it? Not the appearance of age, but it's, what's that? Apparent age, well, whatever. I can't remember. He used the term, but anyways, I think that's what had happened. It was apparent. And the question is this: Are you going to believe God, or going to turn around and take something that's out there? I'm not trying to. And by the way, good science is it's repeatable, it's observable and repeatable, right? Observable and repeatable. Well, the only person that observed it was God, right? He was the one, and he gives us a book. It says, "Here's how it all started. Here's how it all began." So anyways, I don't know how I got sidetracked, chased a squirrel. Anyways, I'm coming back out of the